A mobile workforce that has to enter timesheets can be a difficult and time-consuming task to manage. There may be a manual process whereby the employee enters their time into a spreadsheet and emails them to their timesheet or project manager. The manager will then check those spreadsheets to make sure they are correct, and if they are wrong, then there would need to be an email flow between the manager and the employee to get the timesheets corrected. But that's not the end of the process. Once the timesheet is correct, then the manager needs to submit these spreadsheets to the payroll team so that they can enter them into the payroll. Is there an import routine, or are these manually entered? How long does this process take, and are there checks to make sure this data is correct? Where are these spreadsheets stored so that you have an audit trail? Surely there's a better way to manage this process so that people can focus on their core jobs and not be tied up in a lot of administration involved with this type of timesheet recording. My name is Steve Power and I'm a product specialist here at Pegasus Software. If you have a remote workforce, then wouldn't it be easier for them to use their laptop or mobile device on the internet to enter their timesheets using an application that is quick and simple to use? This means they can enter their timesheets anytime and from anywhere that has internet access. And if this application could handle the communications process of sending the timesheets from the employees to the managers and a built-in approval process for both managers and for the payroll team, then the time savings become significant. There is such an application, Pegasus Web Exchange Timesheets. Thank you for taking time to watch this short preview of the new timesheet application running within Pegasus Web Exchange, which is now available within our payroll and HR solution. Let me show you how this application works by taking you through the process of an employee entering their timesheets, the manager's approval process, and how this integrates with the payroll. The employee needs a device such as an iPad, tablet, smartphone, laptop, and access to the internet. They locate the web address provided to them by their company. This will then allow them into Pegasus Web Exchange Timesheets. Okay, let me log in as an employee and show you how they can enter their timesheets. Wendy has access to her previous timesheets, or she can enter a new timesheet. Let me post a new timesheet and submit it to her manager for approval. Let's assume that she worked at head office on Monday and Tuesday running a couple of staff training courses. She went to the Northampton store on Wednesday to cover staff shortage and helped out with a stock take at the Milton Keynes store on Thursday. And then she took Friday off on holiday. First, I select this timesheet entry icon, and then I select the add option. So on Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday was at the head office running point of sale training. So I select that task. She spent 7.5 hours on Monday and 7.5 hours on Tuesday running those training courses. On Wednesday, she went to the Northampton store on the shop floor covering someone who was off work. So I'll add another activity. I will select the Northampton store sales shop floor activity. And on Wednesday, she spent 7.5 hours there. On Thursday, she went to the Milton Keynes store. So I'll add another activity. This task will be stock counting at the Milton Keynes store. She spent the morning doing that, so that's 4 hours. And then in the afternoon, she went through the stock to check the quality of the stock in the storeroom. So again, this was at the Milton Keynes store, stock quality control. And she spent 3.5 hours doing that. And finally, on Friday, she took that day off as holiday. So I'll record 7.5 hours for that. If we now look at the timesheet, we can see those times being entered. And we can see that she has spent a total of 37.5 hours at work that week. If she wants to go through and add any notes to any of those tasks, then she can do. So for instance, let's add a note to this holiday. Booked with personnel. This can be saved as a draft so that she can come back later to this to check that it's correct before she submits it to her manager. Or equally, if she's happy with this timesheet, then she can go through and submit it immediately. Let's take this option to submit this timesheet. So that is now with her manager, awaiting for them to approve this submitted timesheet. She can view that timesheet. She can view it in its full status, or she can view a summary of that timesheet. And this summary shows it, the hours, day by day by day. Now it's over to her manager to go through and approve this timesheet. Richard Godson is both a project manager and a timesheet manager. This means that when he logs in, he can set up both projects and he can also approve timesheets. When he looks at the projects, he has the ability to create new projects, or he can edit existing projects. Here is a list of the projects to which Richard has currently assigned as project manager. If we look at a project in more detail, in this case I'm going to look at the head office project, I can see more information associated with that project. Here are a list of tasks that have been assigned to this head office project. And if we look at an individual task, such as that point of sales training that Wendy undertook earlier this week, here we can see details of this particular task. In this example, it contains details of this staff sales training course on the use of the point of sale equipment. If we select the workers option, we can see that Wendy was assigned to perform this particular task. If we look at another task, in this case I'm going to choose the web sales order processing task, I can see the details of that task, but I can also see the workers that are being assigned. In this example, we can see that a number of workers have been assigned to this particular task. It also shows us that workers can be assigned from groups, individually, or we can assign everyone to that particular task. This means that when an employee is entering their timesheets, they will only be able to pick tasks that are being assigned to them. This means that the projects and tasks are quite tightly controlled so that the analysis of project time will be accurate. Okay, Richard is going to have a look at the timesheets that are outstanding that require his approval. He's going to select this Manage Timesheets option. If we look at the timesheet just submitted by Wendy, we can see the hours that have been worked against tasks on projects. We can also see any notes that have been entered into the system by Wendy. If we are happy with that timesheet, then we can approve it and send it to the payroll team for them to have their final say as to whether this should go into the payroll so that the employee gets paid for those hours worked. If we are not happy with the timesheet, then we can reject it and send it back to Wendy for her to correct and resubmit for approval. Let's do that. Note, as soon as we reject a timesheet, we are prompted to enter a note to tell Wendy why it was rejected. Wendy, you have not put in your travelling time to Milton Keynes. Richard Godson. If Wendy selects the View Timesheets option, she can see the status of that timesheet is sitting as Pending Worker Resubmit. If Wendy takes the Edit option, she can see the reason why her timesheet was rejected and therefore can correct it and resubmit it for approval. If we update the timesheet with the travelling time, so we're going to select travel time on Thursday for 2.5 hours. We can now see we have a new task on the system itself. And of course we can go through and we can edit the note related to it. Thanks, Richard. I forgot that. Corrected now. And Wendy can resubmit that timesheet. So that now is sitting as the status of worker submitted. And again, it's waiting for Richard to approve. If Richard looks at the managed timesheets, he can now see that that timesheet has been resubmitted from Wendy. He can look at the original notes. If we open up the timesheet, we can see that it's now been corrected with this travel time on there, and Richard can go and have a look at the notes that Wendy has recorded there. If Richard is still unhappy with this timesheet, we could go through the same cycle again of rejecting the timesheet and asking Wendy to resubmit. However, Richard is now happy that this timesheet is correct, so he is going to approve this timesheet and send it to the payroll team. If Wendy now looks at her timesheet, she can see that it's moved from pending manager approval to pending payroll approval. This is the next stage. Even though the timesheet managers approved the timesheet, it is ultimately down to the payroll team to decide whether or not to accept that timesheet into the payroll. So if we log into Opera 3 and go to the Pegasus Web Exchange Center, on the dashboard, the payroll supervisor can see that there are 2 timesheets waiting to be imported into the payroll. The payroll supervisor can import these timesheets so that they can have a look at them to make sure they are correct. If we take the option to import timesheets for the monthly payroll group, the payroll supervisor can view the transactions in this audit report, or the payroll supervisor can use this authorised timesheet screen to look at a particular timesheet in more detail. This allows the timesheet to be marked as accepted so that it will go into the payroll and the employee will get paid, or it can be marked as rejected and the reasons can be specified for that rejection. In which case the timesheet will go back to Wendy for her to amend and resubmit. Richard will then need to approve those changes, and then the payroll team would make the decision again whether to accept or reject that resubmitted timesheet. In this presentation, I'm going to accept that timesheet from Wendy. And it gives me an audit trail of what's just being imported into the payroll. Now we see that there's only 1 timesheet that is outstanding. Let's go and see what's happened from Wendy's perspective. If Wendy now views her timesheets, she can see that the timesheet status has changed to payroll approved. As you've seen, if you have a workforce that operates remotely, then Pegasus Web Exchange Timesheets takes the power of timesheet entry out of the office and delivers it to employees so they can enter their timesheets from any location that has internet access using their device of choice. Equally, if you have office-based staff that need to enter timesheets, then they can also use this simple and highly accessible timesheet recording system from their own desks. There is a lot of project-related time activities being recorded within the system. This can be reported on from within this application. Richard, as the project manager, can look at information from the project screen. Note there's an option called Project Activity. This is where we can analyse activities against our projects. The first screen is a filter so that we can reduce down the data selected to only be that for the areas that we're interested in. We can choose live projects, active projects, closed projects, or indeed we can choose individual projects themselves, such as the head office project. We can choose tasks and task types, So we can choose all task types, for instance, or we can be selective to individual task types. We can change the date range. And also we can select all workers, or we can choose individual workers to report on. If I then take the projects option, this populates the screen with the data matching up to the selection criteria that I've just put in. If we look at the head office project and we look at the tasks, we can see the tasks that are set up for the head office projects. We can look at individual activities. So here, for instance, is the point of sales activity. I can add additional filters by simply selecting any of the options that have an underline. So in this case, I could select a particular worker and I can select a particular date. So in this example, the filter is built up for head office, point of sale training for Wendy Turner on a specified date. I can remove the date filter. So in which case I will get all staff training records for Wendy at the head office. If I remove the training records and the head office, I then get all of the activities for Wendy. If that wasn't enough, we can further analyze this data by simply selecting the download option. This will take the current selected data and export it straight into Excel for further data analysis. This provides a very powerful reporting features for analysing employees' time recorded against activities on projects. So, to recap on the advantages that Pegasus Web Exchange timesheets will bring to your company. From an employee's perspective, remote workers can enter their timesheets from home, from their customer site, or indeed anywhere that has an internet connection. And even workers in your own office can use this application to enter their timesheets. They can use their own laptop, iPad, smartphone, tablet, PC. The workflow means that if a timesheet is rejected, then the timesheet is sent back to the employee to change and resubmit. The employee can see the comments made by the manager. This means that the employee knows what needs to be amended to correct the timesheet and then resubmit it. If an employee has a similar work pattern each week, then the timesheet can be pre-populated with their usual tasks. This means that the employee simply has to enter in their times against those tasks, making the timesheet entry much quicker for that employee. The employee can look at old timesheets, should there be a query. If you also are using the payroll self-service, then the employee can look at their own pay slips online within Pegasus Web Exchange. This means that the whole process from timesheet entry, approval, through to payslip production can all be run within Pegasus Web Exchange, a fully integrated solution. And as we've seen, it is simple and intuitive to use. From a project manager's perspective, employees enter their time against tasks on projects, which allows the project manager to analyse that data. Since it is possible for the project manager to assign activities to individual employees, it means that there is less likelihood that time will be posted to the wrong task. The inbuilt reporting tools allow that data to be manipulated so that meaningful project information can be identified. This data could be exported to Excel for further analysis to help identify trends that might be occurring within the projects. A project can have a status of live, active, dormant or closed. This means that reporting and data analysis can be performed on historic as well as on current projects. Using trend analysis of this data helps managers improve the efficiency of current and future projects. And because this is an online application, this analysis can be done at any time, even from the customer's premises. And from a payroll manager's perspective, timesheets are more accurate because they're being checked online by the timesheet managers before they're forwarded to the payroll team. Any inaccuracies are identified at the earliest stage so they can be corrected. There is only one point of data input, which reduces the chances of errors being introduced, which is always a possibility if there is manual rekeying of time into the payroll. Since the system is totally integrated, timesheets are processed more quickly from initial input right the way through to posting to the payroll. This improves the efficiency of the payroll department. The payroll manager can review the timesheets prior to accepting them into the payroll. This not only improves accuracy, it also means that any errors identified are returned to the employee from within the application without the need to use other software such as emails. There is also an audit trail of those timesheets accepted and rejected by the payroll team should any queries occur. And of course, the data is securely stored within Pegasus Web Exchange so that only authorized users can get to see this information. Pegasus Web Exchange Timesheets provides you with the tools for your employees to enter their timesheets, providing effective management of both employees' time and employees' activities. Thank you for taking the time to watch this short video on Pegasus Web Exchange Timesheets. For further information, please visit pegasus.co.uk.